Good day, Mighty Eagles. For today's video, we're gonna talk about the tasks for coping with the challenges of intercultural communication. Intercultural communication is a discipline that studies the communication across different cultures and social groups. It is simply how cultural affects the communication. So we're gonna talk about the intercultural communication of South Korea. So before we going to the let me introduce myself. 안녕하세요. 저는 Chrischelle from Bachelor of Science in Accountancy. So for this topic, we're gonna talk about the communication modes, practices, and styles of South Korea that may help us to understand their culture and the way they communicate with each other. This might be some travel tips when you go to this dream destination of ours, as we have been influenced by the K-pop boy groups and girl groups, the K-dramas, the Korean movies, their fashions, and their food that has been emerged in this country, particular country that makes South Korea our dream destination to go, such as the Gyeongbokgung Palace, the major legal residence of the royal family in the Joseon Dynasty, the Seoul Tower, the Jeju Island located at top of Namsan Mountain in the center of the city, offering a great scenic view of the cityscape. The Naminsun Island, which became popular after appearing in the Korean drama Winter Sonata in 2002, and many more tourist spots in South Korea. This might help us when we want to travel in South Korea. So let's learn together and see each other in South Korea. This might help us to communicate with them and help us to have less mistake when going in this dreamland. So the first topic is we're gonna talk about the way they greet each other. When addressing someone, use a person's formal title like Mr., Miss, or Doctor when addressing them for the first time, and continue to do so until they signal otherwise. The casual bow is a dip of the head with eyes closed, sometimes accompanied by a slight bend from the waist. This type of greeting is used when informally greeting someone or walking past someone of a higher status. I've noticed this in K-pop industry and K-drama world, where the hubei's sometimes bow their head or greet their names or superiors when they pass each other. So this type of communication, they respect with each other. The business interactions require a deeper bow where the torso bends from the waist by about 30 degrees. And the deepest, most polite bow expresses sincerest gratitude or apology. One bends from their torso to around 45 degrees or such an angle from which the head would have stretched up to look into the face of the other person. The head is kept lowered in this greeting. So handshakes are also used to greet in South Korea to show great respect. During this greeting, one may support the wrist of their right hand with their left hand as they shake like this one. So a person in a position of service may put their hands together in front of their chest when greeting or accepting something as an expression of gratitude. How they name their babies or how they name the people in South Korea. Korean names are usually 3 syllables long, formatted as surname, personal name, and other personal name, with 1 syllable for each name. For example, Kim Jong-kyu. Both the personal names are considered to be first names. The concept of a middle name is not followed in South Korea. In the example of Kim Jong-kyu, Jong-kyu is its first name. The surname comes before the personal names, reflecting how the family comes before the individual in South Korea. South Korean culture. So it can be difficult to differentiate a person's gender from their name in South Korea. It is common for women to retain their own family name upon marrying At times, she will use her husband's family name when conversing with non-Koreans. So, 50% of Koreans share the same surname. The most common last name is Kim, followed by Lee, then Park. So let's proceed the two phases of their communication, which is the verbal communication and the non-verbal for verbal communication. Indirect communication is when South Korean communication pattern is generally indirect and quite verbose. They tend to rely less on words and are attentive to speakers' postures, expressions, and tone of voice to draw meaning. Speech can be ambiguous as they often understate their point. The purpose of this is to maintain harmony throughout the conversation and prevent loss of pace on either end of the exchange. The best way of navigating this rhetoric to find the underlying meaning is to check the clarification several times through open-ended questions. So, a South Korean's preoccupation with saving face and politeness means that they will seldom give a flat no or negative response even when they don't agree with you. Therefore, focus on hints of hesitations, listening to what they say, but also paying careful attention to what they subtly imply. So while they make indirect in their communication style, South Koreans generally speak quite firmly and use less gestures and facial expressions. Silence is an important and purposely tool used in Asian communication. Pausing before giving a response indicates that someone has applied appropriate thought and consideration to the question. It reflects politeness and respect. Laughter is sometimes used in awkward situations. A Korean may laugh when they feel uncomfortable and not necessarily because what they said was genuinely happy. Let's proceed for the non-verbal communication of South Korea. So, Koreans are generally not very physically affectionate with one another. However, male friends may touch one another more than Western men, and girls may walk hand in hand. So, personal space is not guarded very closely in South Korea. People generally expect to come into contact with strangers on busy streets and tend not to worry or apologize when personal space is invaded. Sometimes people do not point with their index finger, but rather with their hands like this. When pointing in South Korea, it is rude when you point on your index finger, so when you go to South Korea, point with your open palm or with your entire hand. During a discussion or friendly conversation, make full eye contact with the person you are talking to. Avoid direct eye contact if you are scolded, rebuked by someone older or of a higher status than you. Some Koreans may also avoid eye contact with their superiors on a regular basis because they don't tend to make eye contact with their superiors because it is considered to be disrespectful or rude to them. So, use two hands or your right hand alone to offer or receive something. It is considered rude to make a fist with your hand while placing the thumb between middle and index finger. Koreans tend to come across quite straight face in conversation. However, their facial expression can immediately expose when they are angry or in disagreement, as well as an expression of glee and humor. Smiling can indicate that one is feeling ashamed or embarrassed in Korean culture. For example, a Korean may smile when they make a mistake. Sneezing is considered rude in South Korea. It is best practice to excuse yourself from the room if you have to. Or when you want to sneeze, you may excuse yourself to go to the bathroom because sneezing in front of the table is considered rude in South Korea. Koreans can find it awkward or intimidating to speak one-on-one with the people of the opposite gender, so mass socialization between genders in Korean occurs in groups. Koreans only scribe in red ink to write the name of someone who passed away. So when Koreans use red ink on their writing, that person has been passed away. So let's talk about the do's and don'ts in South Korea. Laugh with Koreans whenever possible as they enjoy sharing humor. Make an effort to compliment what you like about Korea. This may help in giving you face. Be aware how you fit in the social hierarchy that Koreans observe. Discern who is superior to you based on age, position, and family name, and show respect to each person as necessary. If you do not adhere to these expectations and fail to give Korean the respect they are due, you may lose face in their eyes. You may even find that they wish to avoid you after because they strictly use honorifics when they are talking to someone older to them and someone who is superior than them. So expect a Korean to be modest and subtly deny any compliments you give them. So when going to South Korea, be sensitive to the hardship of South Koreans endured and sympathize about the situation in North Korea. So when in South Korea, avoid drawing parallels between the Korean culture or language. Japan, Korean should be acknowledged for its distinctiveness and differences from other East Asian cultures. Avoid exhibiting anger or distress in heated displays or outbursts of emotion. Doing so may cause you to lose face. Do not underestimate their knowledge and intelligence, as the Korean population is very culturally educated and politically aware. Because as I observe in Korean dramas and Korean dramas, after finishing their school, they tend to have tutors and they often attend academy after they finish their school. Give you some facts about South Korea. Age of 30, men must commit to 21 to 24 months of military services, even if they are a celebrity, because military services are compulsory in South Korea. Another fact is South Korea is the largest universe in Asia. There is one thing on Valentine's Day, women gives chocolates and gifts to their husbands or boyfriends to show their love. So the Valentine's Day in South Korea is day for a man. Thus the White Day on March 14 is when men give gifts to their girlfriends and wives, with data showing that they typically spend about 3 times as much as they receive on Valentine's Day, because that's the day when they give their wives or girlfriends the best in their life, or it may consider the Valentine's Day in their country. For the people that who are single, there is still a celebration in South Korea which is called the Black Day on April 14. This is when singles come together to mourn the fact that they are single by eating balls of jjajangmyeon. Facts about South Koreans is that when they are born, they are automatically 1 year old. There are different schools of thoughts as to why this is. One explanation is that people think it's because the baby in the mother's womb for 9 months, which is about 1 year. Therefore, in South Korea, the baby is 1 year old when born. The method of calculating this is little tricky since it can vary with the lunar calendar, solar calendar, and your birthday. The simplest way to answer the age question in South Korea is to just tell Koreans the year you were born. I hope these tips help you to communicate and know and understand about their culture. As being in our country, this helps us appreciate and understand other people's culture. Thus, it helps us to connect with them more, and this will makes us to dream to go to the one's place. So we study well, my Tigers, so that we can reach the dream to go to this dreamland of ours. Kamsahamnida, my Tigers. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something.